Joining me now to test exactly how much we pay attention to each other's lives, it's my colleagues and dearest straight male friends, Jon Favreau and Tommy Vietor. Hi, boys.
Hi.
Please,
Wow.
please have a seat.
Very exciting.
Thanks for being here, John.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Tommy.
Thanks. We were just warned it gets a little personal.
Is that true?
We'll see. We will be playing our version of the Newlywed Game. I will ask them both questions. They will have to write down the answers, and we will find out how well they know each other and some others. All right. Are you boys ready?
Yes.
Ready.
So you both write down your answers, okay?
Yeah.
But one of you will know the answer, and the other will be guessing what the other feels. You know what I mean? You'll see in a second.
Okay.
Couldn't have explained that worse.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Here we go. John,
Mm-hmm.
what has been Tommy's favorite album of 2021 so far? A hint would have been it's also the one he's talked about the most.
I know.
Tommy, what is your favorite album of 2021 so far?
It's America's favorite album, Olivia Rodrigo.
I think you're thinking what I'm thinking,
Yeah. So I
which
think
is
it's Donda. and here's a twist in our version of the Newlywed Game. Give us a ding. John is correct. Yeah. He's Rodrigo in the streets, Donda in the sheets. Tommy Vietor.
Long and meandering, is that what you're saying?
That's
Thanks.
Tommy.
Yeah.
What is John's favorite keto snack? Tommy, what did you write?
Some shitty bar.
Some shitty bar. Also where he met Emily.
that is true. That is true.
But John, what did you write?
Cheese crisps.
Cheese crisps.
Fuck the cheese crisp.
Cheese
crispy
crisps.
thing of cheese.
That's
It's
right.
crunchy. 'cause
That's
you
right.
can't
It's crunchy bits of fried cheese.
It's delicious.
Because nothing
Try
is
it.
dry it, everybody. All right. Well, you know, Tommy, I kind of think you deserve the points for that. 'Cause
Thank
that
you.
sucked.
Thank you.
John, now let's get personal.
Oh God.
John, what annoys Tommy most about sharing an office with me? I really don't. I learned something from this one.
I have a question mark after mine.
John, what did you guess?
Pundit barking?
Ooh.
The temperature.
Temperature.
It's 90 degrees in there.
That's true. It does suck. It is
I
very
mean, it's
hot.
not Lovett's fault though.
No,
No.
but it is the worst part. That was a political answer. And you know
Yeah.
what? Thank God it was. Because I don't want to know the answer. Tommy,
Yeah.
we're going to get into some deep stuff here.
Uh-oh.
What was the name of the restaurant you awkwardly hugged me in front of?
Nailed this one.
What was the answer?
Spartina?
It was Spartina.
Spartina.
It was Spartina. Now, this is our final question, and it will be both.
You're not
one
going
where-
to explain that story? We're just going to let that.
We're going to get there. Tommy, John, and I, we work together every day. We're back in the office. We're seeing each other all day. I happened to bump into Tommy and John at a restaurant nary 2 hours after we last saw each other at work. And Tommy was so flummoxed, he gave me a hug. The first hug we've ever had. Which brings me... Hug number one. We've been to weddings together. Now, next question. This is for John. Why did Tommy hug me? And I want this. No, sorry. First question. Why would Tommy say he hugged me? What is Tommy's explanation for why he hugged me? That's what we're going. You have to. That's what we're trying to say.
Wow.
It's going to be complicated because there's a follow-up. Why does Tommy think he hugged me? Completely off the rails. None of this was on the card.
Good to see you, ? Missed you?
Tommy, what'd you say?
I said pre-hug to Ronin hug, parenthetical, aborted.
Aborted. Oh, so he said he saw Ronan, got confused. Okay. Both of those answers are incorrect. Final question. Tommy, why did you really hug me? And John, we talked about this when Tommy wasn't in the room.
Yeah, I know.
Tommy, what's your answer?
Love.
Love. Unfortunately, that's incorrect. Jon, what's the real answer?
The real answer is because we were with our friend Shomik, we were having a few drinks, then he saw you and was like, are we having fun without Lovett? Do I feel weird? Is it bad? Should I hug him to make him feel better that he's not here?
It was a work dinner.
I know, but still.
I think
still,
underneath
you feel guilt
it,
all the time
underneath
about
it, you feel
everything.
guilt all the time. There was a level of guilt to it. And
Yeah.
examine it.
We left at 8 p.m. and you were just arriving.
We were just arriving. Ronan eats like a European music star. It's like I don't understand where he gets. He's like 9:30. Should we go for an early dinner? 9:30. Jesus Christ.
I've been sleeping for an hour by then.
It's like Paris Hilton in the 90s. But he's not powered by cocaine. He's powered by like a fucking jet engine of ambition. The fucking core of his chest never turns off. It's like a fucking Iron Man thing. He'll point it at anything. Framing a picture, capturing a politician in flagrante. Whatever you need, it's 100% of the time. Anything else you guys want to cover?
No, I think that's everything.
That was really good. How red am I? Pretty good?
The lighting is...
Okay, thank you.
Tommy Vietor, Jon Favreau, both of them winners. Thank you both so much. When we come back...
Are you going to hug?
No, we're not... Oh, God. Oh, God.
Yes.
I'm so happy we had space on the calendar for today's guest, a man with an otherworldly resume. His best-selling book, Endurance, shot like a rocket ship up the bestseller chart. He is a former military fighter pilot who commanded 3 missions on the ISS and holds the U.S. record for most accumulated number of days in space. He is also the brother of Arizona's best senator. Please welcome astronaut Hall of Fame inductee, my hero and yours, Scott Kelly. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Jon. Appreciate it.
So I have a lot of questions for you. Now, there's a lot of talk about the billionaires in space. News today that Michael Strahan is going for a ride on Jeff's rocket, and then he may go to space. Can you talk a little bit about, that's a terrible joke, and I'm so sorry. I do think sometimes that all of these sort of companies get lumped together, and I'm curious if you see a difference between what SpaceX is doing versus what, say, Blue Origin is doing.
Oh, it's much different. I mean, Blue Origin is going on what's called a ballistic trajectory, so they don't go into orbit. It's a much lower altitude, whereas SpaceX puts a rocket with people on it into orbit, which is, takes a lot more energy, 17,500 miles an hour to get into low Earth orbit. I think probably a Blue Origin is probably going about 3,000 miles an hour maybe to get up to 100 kilometers. So big difference, but I'm still a fan of both.
And I know, you've given interviews where you talked about being a little bit skeptical of what SpaceX was trying to do technologically, and then you saw what it was. You saw them land a rocket back down, vertically, and you said you'd be less skeptical thereafter. I mean, have you been surprised by the ongoing speed with which SpaceX has been able to become such a dominant force in space?
When Elon originally said he was going to land the first stage on a barge and then refly it, I thought he was crazy. But NASA had looked at that decades ago, and thought it was either, I don't know, technologically too complex, too expensive. For whatever reason, they decided not to do it. And then Elon went and did it. So I was very impressed. I will never again question his sanity when he says he's going to do something. SpaceX does move very quickly, but they, are not NASA as NASA exists today. They're, much more leaner, efficient organization. And that's why NASA decided to partner with them to build the Falcon and the Dragon spacecraft, is because they can do things quicker, cheaper, hopefully just as safe. Maybe, ideally it'd be more safe, but they have proven their efficiency. Now, having said that, NASA used to be able to do stuff like that. We went to the moon, in 8 years, so it's possible for us to do it. But I think, since 1969, the agency has just grown to be very, very complex, and making decisions to do stuff quickly is not one of our, it's not a hallmark of NASA as it exists today.
Do you think that's something that has to change, or do you think that the kind of evolution of these private entities is how we have decided to deal with the fact that NASA's become more bureaucratic?
No, I don't know if it has to change. I think I would like it to change some. Certainly, the government does things differently and probably always will than private or even public companies. But by having organizations, companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic in some respect, but the traditional aerospace companies, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, having them, Sierra Nevada Corporation, Sierra Space, having these folks, be responsible for operations in low Earth orbit, frees up NASA's infrastructure. It frees up money, bandwidth to do the more complicated things like going back to the moon and Mars. So I think it can be a good relationship that is beneficial to everybody.
Speaking of advances that NASA can lead, I was looking at pictures the Hubble Space Telescope took before talking to you. What are you most excited about from the Webb telescope? What do you hope to see?
Well, it's 100 times more powerful than Hubble. And I think most people would agree that Hubble is incredibly powerful, has shown us a perspective where our place in the universe. And to have an instrument that is going to be 100 times more capable is just hard to put my head around. Who knows what we're going to find? I think, anything is possible with something that powerful. Not exactly the same as Hubble. I mean, it doesn't have a camera that is in the true optical range, I think, where we, see things, but close enough. I think it'll have some incredible science. I mean, hopefully 100 times better than Hubble, but it's also pretty risky. Technologically, it's pretty risky. A lot of things have to happen for that telescope to get working properly, and I'm going to be, a little bit nervous when all those things have to happen. I mean, that telescope's at 1 million miles, where it's going to be the apogee of its orbit. It's what's called the Lagrange point. L2, I believe, between Earth and the Sun gravity system. So, if something doesn't go right, our ability to fix it, unlike Hubble, is going to be much limited.
Do you think that the Webb telescope will be able to see any kind of exoplanet cities that we can kind of zoom in and see?
Imagine that
in action.
Imagine if it could see light. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it can. It may be able to see some chemical compositions in exoplanets that would only be there if they were given off by life, like plant life. Some kind of life form would have to be responsible for those chemicals. So it is possible that James Webb could discover life in the universe.
You've been skeptical, though, about the possibility that aliens have visited Earth, and you've been skeptical of the evidence presented so far. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you've talked about the fact that some of the distances are too great, but that does presume a lot about our limitations being universal limitations.
I just say that because based on my understanding of physics and the distances involved, it's kind of, a little bit science fiction to think that even, the nearest star with an Earth-like planet, if we could go as fast as we can, it would take 80,000 years to get there. Does that mean someone else can't go faster? Maybe. I just don't see any evidence of it. I'm kind of a science-based minded person. So I'm a little skeptical when people claim that there are spacecraft visiting this planet from other places. I'm not questioning the integrity of people that claim those things. I think, our aerospace environment has a lot of potential for optical illusions, things that just don't look like you expect. But the idea that we have little green men walking around the Earth that come from other planets is just, I just don't see evidence of it.
So last week we got this window into a darker future when there were the fears that debris from an anti-satellite test might put the ISS in danger. Trump was very pleased with himself for getting to say he created a space force. If space becomes increasingly valuable, doesn't it become a place we increasingly fight over? How do you think about that?
Well, I think it's human nature. That's what people do, right? They fight over land and other things, crazy things. I'm sure at some point we'll be fighting over space. I think we're sticking our toes into that dangerous water right now. You know, Doing those anti-satellite tests really, creates takes a risky environment because of all the space junk we have to deal with already. It makes it even worse. So, I think we should have some kind of international agreement between countries that have the ability to do this, that we're not going to do this anymore, because eventually, you could put yourself in a position where you can't utilize low Earth orbit anymore for or even the higher orbits, because there's too much space junk out there. One of the biggest risks of going to Mars is getting through the orbital graveyard, as we call it, where all these spent rocket bodies and old satellites are sent to die, and just transiting through that is very risky. So we got a problem. We shouldn't make it worse. Do I think we will solve that problem? We can. But lately I think there's a lot of problems that, despite our ability to solve them, we don't have the will yet. Anyway.
You need people on community service with those sticks, you know, like they have on the side of the highway, where they can like kind of stick a little piece, put it in a bag, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, let's send you.
So you've talked about the physical effects of being in space for a long time, the muscle loss, the bone loss. But you talked about also working out in the ISS 2.5 hours a day to mitigate it. How effective was that? How much hope did it give you that we have the ability to keep people healthy for long enough to get to Mars, to be in space for a long period of time?
Well, we do. I was in space for 350 days. It would take 340 days, I think. It's my last flight. It takes less than that to get to Mars. So, I've proven you can go to stay in space for as long as it takes to Mars and be able to, function well enough. Had some effects. My heart muscle shrunk 25%, without having to oppose gravity for that long, despite all the exercise. But, you get that back over time. And I think the bigger challenge is, if someday we want to go to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, probably going to need artificial gravity, because, being without gravity for that long is not going to be good for the astronauts that get to wherever they're going and need to be able to work and function.
What was the most annoying part? Not the serious part, not anything that's going to require an investigation or an experiment or a way to solve, but just the thing that drove you fucking nuts about not having gravity.
Well, floating is fun, but it makes everything else harder to do. Everything except two things: moving large objects, and then just kind of getting yourself in a unique position to be able to do maintenance on, let's say, something that's broken. I mean, even simple things like eating or brushing your teeth is an example. You don't have a sink. The sink requires gravity. We don't like to, and suction, and we like to be able to recycle, or at least let water in the atmosphere, water turn into humidity, which then gets recycled. So just brushing your teeth becomes incredibly annoying, because you either have to spit the toothpaste out into a tissue, which is very awkward in zero gravity, kind of messy, or you have to swallow it. And so yeah, brushing your teeth is really irritating. I swallowed my toothpaste for a whole year, basically. I don't recommend that to any kids out there. Do not swallow your toothpaste. It's not
Don't
good
do
for
it.
you.
How soon do you think we're going to have experiments with artificial gravity? I assume you mean some kind of like larger rotating spacecraft to generate artificial gravity. How far away do you think we are from that? It's been in every science fiction movie since 2001.
Yeah, so when I talk about that, I'm talking about really artificial gravity for people. Now, whether that's rotating the whole spacecraft, or maybe it's you have a little centrifuge and you go in it for an hour a day and read your email while spinning around. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But technologically, I think we can do it. It's like anything in space. It's a matter of, what your priorities are and how much money you have to spend. I mean, we could have done it on the space station. We actually had a centrifuge module for science, you know, big centrifuge. Now we had some little ones for like blood and stuff, but we had a centrifuge module on the space station at one time, but it not for people, but just larger experiments, and it got canceled for due to cost. So it's we could do it now if we had the money and wanted to.
Are you excited by how the kind of, because of some of these private companies, you're seeing some of the costs associated with getting heavy objects into orbit coming down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the holy grail to access to space that's more common and available to everyone is the cost. Certainly the safety is very important too. They're probably equally important, but the more people you fly, the more you learn, the safer you can make it, and the lower you can make the cost, to where someday I would imagine a world where you can jump on a suborbital rocket and fly anywhere to the world in an hour. Or now, people can go on assuming you have enough money, you can fly into space as a tourist. Is that available to most people? No. But someday, if we keep doing it, the cost will go down and the opportunity will go up.
It does seem like, to your point about it becoming more common, it does seem we're at this inflection point. I remember somebody said this once about the space shuttle, which is that it made space routine except on cost and safety, which was, I think, a kind of ironic point about the kind of role the shuttle played. On the one hand, space is exciting and it's dangerous, and it's an adventure. It takes courage. It takes daring. It's why we admire astronauts such as yourself. On the other hand, beginning with the shuttle, now as we're seeing more civilians in space, there's this routinization of space travel, which is necessary if more and more people are going to spend more and more time off of the surface of the Earth. How do you think about that right now, at this moment where, on the one hand, we're heading towards a time in which it's common? On the other hand, right now, we need people to still view it as an exploration, as an adventure, to keep people interested, to keep people invested.
Well, I'm a big fan of flying in space, and I hope everyone else is. And, but I also hope someday it'll be so common that, we'll just consider it like getting on an airliner. And I think that's just called progress. So, and I'm for progress.
All right. So there's a Virgin Galactic ship, there's a Blue Origin ship, there's a SpaceX ship. All right. They're all ready to take off. You got dinner reservations that night. You do not want to miss your dinner. All right. Which one are you going to get on for a quick ride?
Well, of course, the Blue Origin. I mean, the SpaceX is orbital, so more complicated. Lands in the water. You'd have to be picked up by a boat. Blue Origin, much, much quicker flight, right? Okay. It's, I think it's like, I don't know, less than 15 minutes. Virgin Galactic, takes a while to get to altitude. So clearly, if you have dinner reservations that evening, I think Blue Origin should be your go-to rocket.
Which you think is safest right now?
It's hard to say. SpaceX certainly has a pretty good safety record of flying people. Blue Origin, likewise. But Blue Origin doesn't have as much history on it as SpaceX. But, SpaceX is doing something much more complicated and a lot more energy involved. Virgin's had a fatal accident. They, but they're working towards making it safer. That's just how things go. People are, understand that this is risky stuff we do. But if I was, if I wanted to jump on a rocket and probably felt like I wanted my best chance of coming home, and going into lower orbit wasn't a requirement, I don't know, probably jump on the Blue Origin rocket. I don't know a lot about, the individual technologies. I do know there's some, there's certain different risks in each one, even the suborbitals, but I'd probably be less nervous maybe on Blue, I guess.
Last question. Does it bother you in movies about space where you hear the pew, pew, pew of the lasers and the engines make noise?
Oh, you mean because they're in a vacuum?
Because they're in a vacuum.
Nah, it doesn't bother me. It's Hollywood, right?
It's Hollywood.
You got to make it entertaining.
Scott Kelly, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on being inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
My pleasure, John, and thank you. Thanks for that. It was a big honor. Appreciate it.